And we learned that person who was able to jump a mill, he spoke as if he didn't need a Rebbeinu Shalom. He said, and he ended up getting killed by a snake. And then we had the story of Tur Malka, of what a great area it was and how big it was. And then we had the story of the Saka de Rispuk. Once again, the minhag was that they would plant a tree for each baby that was born. For a male, it would be a cedar tree, and for a female, it would be a pine tree. And there was a princess, a Roman princess that was traveling, and her wagon fell apart, and they took one of the trees and they even attacked them. And that's what led to the Beitar to be destroyed. And again, the Gemara talks about how many people there were in Beitar. And the rivers were full of blood for many years, for 7 years, because of the people who were shechted in Beitar. And I think that takes us to the top of Daf Nun Zayin Beis. I believe that's where we left off. So Zok the Heilige Gemara. Amar Rab Chia bar Avin, Amar Rab Yeshua ben Korcha. Sochli Zakan Echad man Yerushalayim. Zakan Echad from Yerushalayim told me that the Bikazu, he pointed to a certain valley. It was probably Nachal Kidron, the valley in between Har Abayis and Har Zeisim. And he said, Bikazu, Harag Nubizradon Rab Tabachim. Nubizradon the butcher killed Masayim the Achas Esrei Riboy, which is 2,110,000 people. Yerushalayim Harak Tishin v'Arba Riboy. And in Yerushalayim, he killed 940,000 people. Al Evan Achas, on one stone, until the blood of all the people that were killed moved all the way, rolled over, flowed all the way until it reached the dam of Zechariah. We know the kever of Zechariah is in the bottom of Har Zeisim, and the blood of Zechariah was bubbling for years after Zechariah was killed, and the blood of the victims of Mizrad and Rav Tavochim actually joined that blood. So the Gemara says, the two bloods touched each other. So what is the story? This butcher saw that the blood of Zechariah was bubbling, which is an unusual thing. Amar lahu, my high. He asked the Yidden, what is this over here? So they told him, oh, Amrulay, they didn't want to say that they killed their own Novi. So what they did was, they made up a Baba Maisa. They said, Dam Zavachim Dishtapuch. It's the dam of Karbonis that were spilled. And that's what happens when Karbonis spills, the dam bubble. I Sudami. So the Mizradan said, let me test it out. So he got a hold of more dam that came from Karbonis, and it didn't bubble. So he knew that in fact it was not true what they were saying. So he said, Amalu told him, if you're going to tell me what the real story is, what's the story with the blood, fine. But the lav, if you're not going to tell me the truth, Masrikna libisraichu misriki de parzala. I'm going to scrape off your skin with steel combs. That's an unimaginable pain. So that sort of motivated them to tell the truth. Amalek, they told him, my name, what should we tell you? Navya Hava Bad, we had a Navi. We had a Navi that was giving us a musar, that was giving us a musar that we should listen to the Torah. Kamina Niluya, we all gagged up on him because we didn't like what he had to say. And what we did is we killed him, because we killed him. And one moment. Oh, Kamina Niluya, the Katlinale, and we killed him. It's already many years, the Loy Kanayach on him. And that's why the blood is bubbling. Amalu. So it was rather than Rav Tabachim said, I'm going to make peace. I'm a peacemaker. What am I going to do? I'm going to be Mephias Zechariah. I see Sanhedrin Gedoyla, Sanhedrin Ketana, Kot Hallelujah. He killed them all. It still didn't calm the blood down. The blood of Zechariah was still bubbling. Kot Hallelujah, and again V'loinach. And then Isaac Tinoikish Shal B'Shrabon, Kot Hallelujah, V'loinach. Amalei. So the Bezradin said, Zechariah. Toivim Shebeheni Badatim. I've already destroyed the best of Klal Yisrael. Nichalach, is that what you want? Davdinu Lakulu, that I should destroy all of Klal Yisrael? When the Bezradin said that, Noch, the blood of Zechariah finally stopped. At that point, here Tshuva B'daite. Right away, he had to hear Tshuva. This brutal murderer had to hear Tshuva. Amar, he told himself, Umayim al nefesh achas kach. Imagine one Yid Zechariah who was killed. Look at the einish that Klal Yisrael got, how many people I killed. Who gabri the kotel kol hanin shmasa, me, who killed so many people. Alachas kama v'kama, my end is not going to be very sweet. And he decided he's not doing this anymore. Arak, he ran away. And I guess he couldn't, if he would announce that he became Jewish, he would lose everything. So Azal Shadush da Prattal Bevese, he sent a star to his household exactly how they should distribute his possessions. And I guess he tried to make like he died, the Geir, and then he became a Ger, and he never came back. So the great, brutal, vicious murderer, he ended up becoming Jewish. Tana, we learned, Namon was a Ger Toishav, Nivuzradin was a Ger Tzedekah. Bibnei Banav Shal Haman, the Eniglich of Haman, Lamdu Torah Bibnei Brak. They actually even learned Torah Bibnei Brak. Bibnei Banav Shal Sisra, Lamdu Tinoikos B'Yerushalayim. They were rebellion in Yerushalayim. And Bibnei Banav Shal Sancherev, Lamdu Torah B'Rabim. And at least the Bibnei Banav of Sancherev we can identify Man Inun Shmai Vavtai. So you see, you see from here that no matter where a person is, he could still come around. That's pretty awesome. Now, Zok Gemara, this that we learned that the dam of Zechariah bubbled and didn't get absorbed into the ground. I'm going to put their blood on a smooth rock which doesn't absorb, so it should not be absorbed into the ground. And now the Gemara dashes another pasuk by the brachas. When Yaakov came to steal the brachas from Esav, his father Yitzchak told him, "Akoyel kol Yaakov, vayidai midei Esav." Your voice sounds like Yaakov, but your hands are furry. They feel like they belong to Esav. Hakoyel ze Andrianus Kesar shaharag Alexandria shal Mitzrayim shishim ribui al shishim ribui, which means 2 times 60 times 10,000, so 2 times 600,000. Kefalayim hiyotzim Mitzrayim. Double the amount of people that left Mitzrayim. I wonder if the article says that some of these numbers might be exaggerated. For sure, David Zolti would be asking to me if I would suggest that possibly some of these numbers might be exaggerated. You're still muted. Oh.
I think all of them are exaggerated.
It seems like that because we're going to have some really large numbers that are hard to understand. Kol Yaakov, ze Aspasianus Kesar, Shaharag b'Krach Beitar, he killed in Beitar, Arba Meyos Riboy. 400 times 10,000 is 4 million. For Amalei Arbas Alofim Riboy, or it's 40 million. 40 million people in Beitar, it's hard to imagine. Vayidai midei Esav, Zu Malchus HaRasha, that's our own Malchus, the Malchus of Rome, Shechrivas Beisenu, Besurfas Echalenu, Higlisanu Merte. Whenever there's a tefillah that works, no matter if a goy made tefillah, there's got to be some Jewish blood mixed in there, and that's the schus with which the tefillah was accepted. And the same thing goes to Yudai Midei Esav. You'll never have a winning side, a side that becomes victorious in the war. There's got to be some blood of Esav in the lineage. Bishoit Lashon. Now, behind the Rabbi this that you see, because of Lashon Hara, Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, because the story of Kamsa bar Kamsa says Bishoit Lashon, with the stick, with the hit of the stick of the tongue, meaning the Lashon Hara that we say, Techave, the tzaddikim hide from it. And we darshan means Bechir Chure Lashon Techave. And Rashi says on Bechir Chure, Rashi says b'merivas Lashon, with the fights that come out because of Lashon Hara, the Erlich should hide to save themselves. But you see, it's the Lashon Hara that's the powerful stick that's so destructive. Amar Bidam Arab, Ma'idich Sev, it says in the pasuk, Al Narois Bovel, Sham Yoshavnu, Gam Bachinu, V'Zachrenu Etzion. Malamet Sharei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Dav Churban Bayis Rishon, V'Churban Bayis Sheni. David HaMelech was shown by the Rebbeinu Shloim, both Churban Bayis Rishon as well as Churban Bayis Sheni. Churban Bayis Rishon Shemer Al Narois Bovel, Sham Yoshavnu, Gam Bachinu, Bayis Sheni Dechsev Zachar Hashem L'Bnei Adam Yisrael Yerushalayim, Ha'imrim Oru Ad HaYisodba. Amar Abidam Shmuel V'Temir Rabbi Rabami, V'Amri Lev Mesnizah Tana, or maybe to Bryce. There were 400 little boys and little girls that were captured, and they were going to be used as sex slaves. They were going to be sex trafficked. They got the feeling about what this was about, why it was that they were captured. They asked the question, if we're going to drown ourselves, it means we can commit suicide. Will we come to Olam Haba? Darshan HaGadol Sheben, the oldest one there, darshan as follows. Amar Hashem, mi Bashan Ashiv, from Bashan I'll take you back, and Ashiv mi Mitzulas Yam, I'll also take you back from the depths of the sea. And we darshan the pasuk. Mi Bashan Ashiv means, Bashan is like a nutricon of mi Bein Shine, between the teeth, Aryeh of a lion, Ashiv I'll save you and I'll get you back. And mi Mitzulas Yam, what is that referring to? Elu Shatoivim Bayam. Those people who drown themselves in the Yam, Hashem will retrieve them. Once the girls heard that they're going to have a chelik l'olam haba, even if they commit suicide and throw themselves into the water, they all committed suicide. Now the boys, the little boys, these were little girls. Little boys made a kal v'chomer. When they said, these girls, yes, they're going to be violated. But they're going to be violated in a way that it's normal for them to be treated. Women normally have bia with people. Yet they wanted to jump off and kill themselves. Us, they want to abuse with mishkav zocher, which is not the norm of the world. So we're even more violated. We're going to be even more violated than they were. Allah has come of a come, and surely we should jump off. Because of you, Rebbeinu Shalom, we were killed the whole day, and lest you think that it was an aveira because they committed suicide. No, just like sheep, you're allowed to shech. That's what you're supposed to do. Shech them and eat them. We are just like that. We killed ourselves. Shem Shemayim is going to be considered like Tzon Tivcha. It won't be an Avera, and we will be accepted into the Eden. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, you know what Nechshavnu Kialecha Hiragnu Kal Yom is referring to? Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Zu Isha v'Shiva B'nei. This is a story about a woman and her 7 sons, and there are some places where this story is mentioned in Shas, where it says Chana v'Shiva B'nei. And what's the story? Asiyu L'Kama L'Kamei Dekeser. They took son number 1 in front of the king. Now the king is trying to show how he is so powerful, and he's going to be able to convince the Jewish people that his God is the real God. So he did it by making a spectacle. He would take a little kid and he would encourage him to bow down to Avodah Zarah. Amrulay, they told the child, the oldest of the 7, Chlach Avodah Zarah, do Avodah Zarah, bow down to Avodah Zarah. Amrulay, the child said, nah, don't think I'm so easy. I will not bow down to your getchke. So they took out the child and they killed him. Then they took the second son in front of the Kesher. So they took number 3. Amalu told him plachla b'zoyer. Amalu ksiv b'tayra zoyvech l'lekim yochram. Zoyvech l'lekim yochram. So once again he refused. So avku b'katlu asil leidich. Now they took number 4. Amalu plachla b'zoyer. Amalu ksiv b'tayra l'shtachave le'elacher avku b'katlu. Okay, then they went to number 5. Asil leidich. Amalu plach l'b'zoyer. Amalu ksiv b'tayra. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Again, Avku b'Ketluah. Ashil Idich took number 6. Amul Leflach Lavo Yizar. Amul Ksub B'Torah B'Yadat Hayoim. V'Shevosh El V'Lecha Ki Hashem Hu Elokim V'Shemayim Imal V'Lorish V'Tach Hashem Noid Avku b'Ketlu. And now they're up to number 7. The Mashal tells us why couldn't they all use the same pasuk? And Hashem Elokecha. So the Mashal gets into detail that these children, this didn't all happen in one day. Each one happened on a different day of the week. And each pasuk is relevant to things that occurred on that day of the week. Okay? Then it says, when it came to the last one, it's Hashem Amarta, there's Hashem Amircha. We are separated for each other. We made vows to each other. We're not going to trade him in for another God, and Hashem made a reciprocal shvutas that'll never trade its sin for others. So now what happened is yes, the king could just kill this child, but then the king's going to look really bad. Here he was showing everybody that, look, I'm going to convince everybody to do Avodah Zarah, and it didn't turn out as easy and as promising as he had hoped. So now he's looking like a fool. So he can't just kill this kid, because then he's basically showing that the Jews are more have a greater conviction and more loyal to me. So he tried to make a deal with this kid. Maybe he could somehow save a little bit of his respect. And he said as follows. He said, Amarle, Kesar, I'll make you a deal. I'll let you live, but I want you to at least make it look like you're doing a Avodah Zarah. Ishti lach gushpanka. I'll throw my signet ring on the floor, which has a tzura on it, like a getchke, and you're going to pick it up to hand it to me, not to do Avodah Zarah. Just bend down, pick up the ring, and pass it to me. The gachem shakle. This way, to the public, it will look that he bowed down. You'll know it's not Avodah Zarah, but don't think it's Avodah Zarah. At least I won't look so bad. Amr lei. He told the king, I don't think so. Chaval alach. It's such a shame. Keser, you Keser. Chaval alach Keser. Al cover atzchalakach. You're so concerned about your respect. Al cover HaKadosh Baruch Hu kama v'kama. Surely we have to show respect for the Rebbe Shalom. The answer is lo imitan aleph. I'm not going to do that. So at that point, he was enraged. He couldn't get this child to do anything of kula lemiktalei. So as they're taking this child out to be killed, Nebuch, another witnessed in short order the murder of 7 of her children. Amalu Ime, the mother said to the executioner, to the king, Havu Naheli, let me at least say goodbye to my child. Vinchiki Porta, let me kiss him a little bit before he's taken to death. Amalu, she told him, Banai, my dear child, I want you to go to Avram Avinu when you get up there and send him the following message. Ato, you think you're so great, Avram Avinu? Ato akadta mizbeach echad. You just put Yitzchak on the mizbeach, only one of your children, and there was a false alarm. V'ani akadti shiva mizbechos. I did 7 akedas, 7 of my children killed. And what happened was she snapped. A woman who has to witness such horrific events, she snapped. And Afi also lagag v'naflu mesa. She ended up committing suicide. This is a happy mother of sons. I guess once she was in Yenevelt, it was pretty good for her. Reb Shua ben Levi Omar, you know what it means when it says, Alecha hayragnu kol hayoim? What it means is umila shenitna b'shmini. Every mother would be very hesitant to give their child over to the moil. It's a dangerous operation. It's very scary. But yet, on a daily basis, women are giving their children over to be nimhal. When it says Allah it's because Talmidei Chachamim, when they want to show how you shech, they would like hold a knife by their own necks to show exactly how you shech, and that's inappropriate. You could demonstrate things on your own body, bar mishchita, not shchita, because it could slip, something could happen. V'davar and the goyim. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Omer, Edel Talmidei Chachamim shememisin atzman al divrei Torah. Alecha Yiragel Kol Yom, we kill ourselves every day for you. We kill ourselves every day for you, Rebbeinu Shalom, for Torah. Rav Shimon Lakish, Rav Shimon Lakish, Ein divrei Torah miskaymin, ela b'mi shememis atzman aleim. Shenemar zois ha-Torah adam kiyam espoil. Amar Rabba B'chanan Rabbi Yochanan. Our boim saw kitzutzei tefillin nimtu b'roshei harugei beitar. How many people were killed there? Just to give you a perspective, they found 40 saw of bottom on the heads of harugei beitar. Rabbi Shmuel Amar, it was way more than that. It was shalosh kuposh shel arboim saw, which means it was 120 saw in total. But Mishnish Datana, it was also 120 saw, but with a different configuration. Arbam kuboy shal shalosh shalosh. 40 kuboys each with 3 saw, shal shalosh shalosh saw to get into 120. V'loi pligi, there's no machlokes between that we said that it was merely Arbam saw, or that it was 120 saw. Haderesh hadadara. Our shal roish and our shal yad are the same size, even though there's a complexity in the 4 sections of the shal roish. Nevertheless, with the modern machinery, our tefillin today are beautiful. However, in those days, it was difficult for them to make the shal roish as small as the shal yad, because there's 4 individual compartments connected. They weren't able to do it like so compact. So like the bride that says it was 120 saw, that's because we're talking about shal roishes, which take up more space. But the shal yad didn't take up as much space, so it was only 40 saw. Amar Basi, Arba Kavin Moyach Echman Latzan Nimtu 11 Achas. On one stone in Beitar, there was 40 saw of the brains of children. Ula Amar Tishas Kavin, it was 9 Kavin. Amar Avkana Vitemra Shila Bar Mori, my car, where do you see this in the pasuk? It says, Bas Bevel Ashaduda, you wild, wicked Babliim. Ashrei Shisham Lecheskumulech. We should be fortunate that you should be repaid for the wickedness that you did to us. Ashrei sheyoiches v'nipatz es elolayach alatzal. It should be fortunate that your little children should be crushed against rocks. Clearly, there was a midah keneged midah. Why we were asking for that? It's because that's what they did to our children. Zok to Gemara, nachapasuk b'nei tzion hayikarim, my dear children b'nei tzion. Hamisulam bepos, that are misulaim bepos. What is the definition of misulaim bepos? My misulaim bepos. If you're going to say that the Jewish people wore clothing, they were covered in pos and expensive, beautiful gold, you cannot say that, because there are 2 measures of pos that came down to the world. One was exclusively for Rome, the Chad, and all the rest for Chula Alma. So you cannot say that they would refer to Klal Yisrael as Misuloim Bapos, because they had way more pos than Klal Yisrael. So that's not what the pasuk would mean. Ella, you know what it was? Show you Meganin as a pos b'yofyon. The Jewish people were so good looking that if you put them near pos, you wouldn't even notice the pos, because their beauty would shine through, and it would eclipse the beauty of the gold. Zok to Gemara, Meikar Chashiva de Remoi have a nakti bilyunid de Geshpanka. They wanted to have good-looking children, so what they would do is they would take their signet rings, and they had beautiful, nice-looking people put onto those signet rings, and there would be shamash mita, where that would be in sight, and what their thoughts would be during Tashmish was the beautiful thing that they looked at, and it would make them have beautiful children, similar to what Yaakov did with the maklois, to get the sheep to either be born with stripes or with dots. Mekan ve'elach, but once they had the Eden, you know what they used to do? Maisu b'nei Yisrael, the Asri b'kari de Parayu, when they had relations with their wives, they would take a Jewish child, tie the child to their bed, so that they should be looking at this Jewish child when they were being mishamish. Unfortunately, the Jewish child had to witness something that was extremely inappropriate. The one told the other, where do you find such an absurd thing occurred? Where do you see that in the psukim? You can't make that up. In the Toicha, it says, this is in the second Toicha, in Devarim, it says, in addition to all the bad things that lists off that the Klal Yisrael will suffer from, it says, Gam kol chali the kol maka asher loikosov b'sefer HaTorah azayis. Even certain makas and chaloyim that aren't even mentioned in this Torah, that's also going to happen to them. Because it's not appropriate for the Torah to write about such a not fine thing. So when the Torah uses this general pasuk, this catch-all phrase, that's what it's referring to. Amar, he said, I'm sorry? Right, but this is what it could be referring to, but what it is referring to, this is the makas it's referring to. Amar, so his friend answered, what a shame I never got up to that parsha. Kaba merchikna miduch plan. How far away did I get in my studies from learning those psukim? Amala ingit pusto palga. Maybe a page and a half, a column and a half. I was getting close. Amala, he said, if I had gotten to this pasuk, I wouldn't have needed you to tell me where you see marumas, this type of horrible abuse, because I would have known it on my own. It says, my eyes are becoming worn and ugly because of all the daughters of my city and their fate. This also must be a guzma. There were 400 shuls in the city of Beitar. I'm going to do the math. There were 400 cities in the 400 shuls in the city of Beitar. So that's 400 times. In each shul, there were 400 malamdei tanoikos. That's 400 times 400. And each malamed, how many talmidim do they have? So that's a 400 a third time. So it's 400 cubed equals 64 million. You know the pointer sticks that the Rebbe used to point on the board with? He would take those sticks and stab the children and stab everybody with them. And then when they eventually conquered them, all these children were wrapped in their svarim, and they were lit on fire. So again, in Beitar, where there 64 million children, I don't know. Taner Rabbanan. They told him, there's a child here in jail. He's beautiful, he's good looking. He has beautiful combed locks of hair. He went to look in the jail to see the children that are locked in jail. Amar, he said, who put Yaakov into such a horrible position? They're smashed. And Klal Yisrael to Deutschen, they're captive, they're in captivity, they're in humiliation. On the Yosy Tinik Bamar, this child answered that question. Hashem, we sinned to him. And we didn't want to go in his ways. And we didn't want to listen to the Rebbeinu Shalom Torah. So you have this child, who's the most beautiful child in the world, and he's also very wise. Amar, right away, Rabbi Shua Chananya identified this child with the Chani boy Shemoyer Harabi Yisrael. This boy is going to be a Moyer Harabi Yisrael. Havoida, I'm making a shvua. She'eni zaz mikan, I'm not going to leave from this place. Ad shefdenu. So he was in there. He was in Rome. He was in Rome, and he was from Yerushalayim. So he said, I'm not going to go back to Yerushalayim. I'm going to remain in Rome. No matter what type of ransom they want, I'm going to raise it. Now we once learned that you're not allowed to pay such a high ransom. So we'll get to that in a second. In fact, he didn't leave there, and they did redeem him. And it didn't take very long. And you know who he was? Umani Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. He was Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. He was a very good-looking Kohen Gadol. So let's have a quick look at Tosfos. Why could you do it? Ki ikos hakanis nefashos hoidin shvuyin yesar kedei tmeim. That I always said you're not allowed to be hoidin shvuyin for obscene amounts. That's if they're not in danger of getting killed. They're just going to remain in captivity. But if there's danger they'll be killed, then you're allowed to. Inami zok Tosfos mishum the muflag b'chachma. Since he was muflag b'chachma, he was a massive Talmid Chacham. That's also a reason why you're allowed to spend more money to redeem him. Amar Rabbi Marav. Maisa bebnoi ubebitoi shal Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha was very good looking. His children were also very good looking, and they were both captured. Shenishbu l'shnei adoinim l'yamim nizdavgu shneim b'makam echad. The two owners, the one who owned the son, the one who owned the daughter, ended up in the same city. I have such a good looking Eved. There's no one as beautiful as her. Amr said, let's make a partnership. Let's have a mate with each other, and then we'll have a whole bunch of offspring that are also equally beautiful. We'll split the bloodlines. So what did they do? They locked him up in a room. They made him spend the night together. They each stayed in their own corners. They didn't get together at all. One said, the son said, Ani Kohen ben Kohanim Gedolim. Esa Shivcha. I'm the Kohen, the son of the Kohen Gadol. I should marry a Shivcha, Rechmon L'Tlon. Zoyse Merish, Ani Kohanis Bas Kohanim Gedolim. And Nasir La'ebed. So they both were crying in their own corners. They didn't get together. Ubahu Kol Alayla. Even Shalom Shachar, once it got light and they were able to see each other, they recognized each other as siblings. They fell on each other and they hugged each other and cried. On this couple, Yirmiyah cries for. There was a woman whose name was Safas Bas Pniel. Why was she called Tzafnas? Tzafnas she called Shefim B'Yofya. She was beautiful, so everybody stole glances of her. Bas Pniel was B'Itoy Shel Kohen Gadol Sheshimosh Lefnai V'Lefnim. She was the daughter of a Kohen Gadol, so she was a beautiful woman, the daughter of a Kohen Gadol. Shenis Alol B'Shavoy Kol Alayla. Her captors were playing with her, tormenting her all night long. L'machar, the next morning, they're going to sell her as a slave. Helbisha Shiva Chalukim, they put her into 7 layers of clothing. Voitzia L'moichra, and they took her to the slave market to sell her. Ba'adam Echad Sheimachur B'Yoser. There was a particularly ugly fellow. Amrloi, he told them, Haranius Yofya, I'm interested in this Shivcha. Let me see how beautiful she is. I want to check out the goods. Amrloi, they told him, Reika, you empty-headed nudnik which you are, you're ugly. If you want to buy her, She'enka Yofya. But we're not going to humor you and let you poke at our goods. Amar Loi, no, Aval Pikin, I want to see what she is. So if Shita Shisha Chalukim, they took off 6 of her 7 layers. The Shvi Karatoi, and the 7th one he tore off. Now she's left naked. The Nispal Sheba Afer, she right away rolled herself in the sand, the earth. Amar Lefanam, she said, Riboyne Shaloilam, Imaleinu Lechasta. If on us, on our honor, you had no Rachmanis, and you're letting us be so horribly defiled, Al Kedusha Shimcha Hagibar Lama Lesachos. Why won't you have Rachmanis on your great name? Because this is a slight to you as well. Valda Kaining Yirmiyo Bas Ami Chigri Sak, daughter of a nation, wear sackcloth, this spalshi be'efer, and roll around in earth. Aval Yochid, Evel Yochid Asilach. You should prava velus of a Yochid. Misbe Tamruim, a bitter husband. He pisaim Yove Hashoide Dalei. Because suddenly our tormentors, our destroyers are going to fall upon us. It doesn't say, Hashem doesn't say Alecha, as if Hashem is talking to us. Aleinu Hashem, it's going to happen to us. Alecha leinemar ela aleinu. Tevayochel alive alecha b'shoyde. Tevayochel, we're not only Klal Yisrael that's being attacked, it's the Kadosh Baruch Hu who's with us together in Lola. Or maybe the Marav, my dechsiv, the ashku gever ubeisoi, you will steal a man in his house, the ish and a man, v'nachalosoi, and his nachla. So Beisoi is referring to his wife. So listen to a horrible story. There was a person who he had the hearts for his Rebbe's wife. This doesn't mean his Rebbe teaches him Torah. V'sholyu the Nagrihav. It was a carpenter. He was the apprentice had the hearts for his journeyman's, for his teacher's wife. So he was going to conspire how he was going to steal this man's wife, and then some. Pamakas hutruch lulavos. His Odoin did it alone, and he happened to have had money. Amaloi says, I'll lend you the money, but I don't want you to come pick it up, because it's embarrassing for you to come to me to borrow money. Shkar ishtacha etzli. You send your wife to pick up the money, ve'elvena, and I will give her the money. Shigar ishta etzli. So the boss sent his wife to this Talmud. Shah ima shloisha yom. He was with her 3 days. There's a shaila if he violated her in those 3 days or not. And we'll see how that plays out. This subject plays out as the story continues. Then his wife didn't come back after 3 days, so he came to his Talmud and said, hey, where's my wife? Amar loy, ishti sheshigati lo cheichani. I sent you my wife to pick up the money. Where is she? Amar loy, I have no idea. Ani patrasil altar. I sent her away right away. She has not spent the last 3 days with me. But vishamati shati noikosh is alul babader. I found out that the young children, they abused her on their way home. So she probably is kidnapped somewhere by these young wild kids. But I'm clean, I'm innocent. Amar loy ma'esa. So he asked him, what should I do? In other words, the Rab asked the Talmud, what should I do? Amar loy imata shemei latzosi. If you want to listen to me, girsha. Give her a divorce. Because he was saying that if she was violated by little kids, it means she wasn't raped, it wasn't forced, because she would be able to repel these youth if she wanted to. So since she didn't, look at her like she's usher to you and give her a divorce. Amar loy, he told him, I'd love to divorce my wife. The problem is kisubasa maruba. I can't afford to divorce my wife. Amar loy said, no problem. Ani alvecha. I'll lend you the money for your ksuba as well. The 10 lakh subasa. So now you'll be able to divorce her. Amad Zavigirsha. He divorced his wife. Hela Chuvanasa. So now this Talmud went and married his boss's ex-wife. So you see how he cunningly conned his boss to steal his wife. Now the time arrived that his Rav doesn't have the money to pay back the money that he borrowed to pay the ksuba. Amaloi. So now you work for me, and you'll work for me, and you'll provide your labor to pay off your debt. Him and his new wife would party hardy together. And now the boss is serving the apprentice. He was serving them. Excuse me. His tears came out of this Rav, tears came out of his eyes, the noiflois b'kaisein, and would fall into the goblets, into the berachos with which he served his ex-wife and his corrupt apprentice. On that Shah was nischasim d'gzardin. So Pashup Shad is because of the horrible thing that he usurped his Rebbe's whole life away. So this is on the tzad that he wasn't mizana with her. He was mizana with her. There were 2 wicks in the same there, meaning him and his boss at the same time had relations with her. So the avla is that he was mizana with her. So that's how the pasuk is touched. The pasuk is touched is v'ashkoi gever ubeisai. Someone's going to steal a man's wife. V'ish nachlosai and also his old possessions. And it was referring to this horrible, corrupt person that conned his boss out of his wife and out of his life. Lokach Manasseh Krikon. We had the halacha, so now we're going back to our Mishnah, back to Lomdus, and away from the Agadita. So it says if someone bought from Krikon, we learned that he has to pay off the seller with 25% of the value of the property, and then he's coined it. So the discussion was: is first he went to the Shakrika, and then he went to the Lekeach. We say that it's not a good sale because Lekeach only agreed to the sale. I'm sorry, the Moicher only agreed to the sale because he was afraid if he wouldn't agree to the sale, the Shakrika would come back and attack him. So Amarav, Loy Shanu Ella the Amar Loy Chazekukni. If when he bought it, after he paid the Shakrika for it, he went to make a deal with the original owner, the original owner told him Lei Chazekukni. He just instructed him to be koina. That's where we say he didn't mean really to sell it. Aval b'shtar. But if they wrote a shtar mechira, that the moicha wrote, I'm selling you this in a shtar with a shtar, then kana, then you don't say he didn't mean it. Because there he already did a ma'isa. That's what Rav said. Even if a shtar was written, it doesn't mean anything. Unless there's a achrayis written in the shtar. Achrayis means that if I sell it to you and for some reason they get seized from you, I take responsibility and I'll pay you. So Shmuel holds, unless you wrote that in the shtar, it's not even considered a shtar. Rav holds, no, if you wrote a shtar, no matter what. And we're going to soon see the machlok is, do you say achrayis to a sefer? Even if achrayis wasn't written in the shtar, do you assume automatically that the shtar is achrayis? Rav holds yes, and that's why if you wrote a shtar even without achrayis, it's as if you wrote a shtar with achrayis. Shmuel said no. If you wrote a shtar without achrayis, it does not have achrayis, and therefore it wouldn't be an indication that the meicher, the owner, wanted to sell it to you. Tanya Kavach the Shmuel, we have a brisa that supports Shmuel. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Lakach min Isha. If you bought it from the woman, the Chazav Lakach min Ish, and then you went to buy it from the husband. So remember, in the Mishnah there was parallel case. There was a Sukrikin case, and there's also a case where a stranger went and bought the land that was designated for the tshuva from the husband. Then he went to the wife, and the wife agreed. That's not called a good mechira. But if he bought it first from the wife, and then he bought it from the husband, there you see she was nicha. She wasn't selling it under duress. So however, when the ish, if you first purchase it from the husband, then it's mechai bottle, because even if she agreed, it's only because she doesn't want to antagonize her husband. Unless so it was Shmuel who said that it's only a good shtar mechira if it has a chrayis. So this brisa seems to support Shmuel. Dr. Gemara name it have it yufta the Rav. Does this look up Rav? No, my achrayis nami shtar. When it says I should take the word achrayis, it meant to write a shtar. It's using the word achrayis to describe a shtar because that's normally how a shtar is written. Tanarabban. Logach when asakrikun, you bought it from the sakrikun, the achla shalosh shonim b'fnei bailim, and you were using the field for 3 years in front of the bailim. The chazra umachra la'achar, and then the purchaser went and sold it to a third party. Ein lebailim alakeach sheinikun. Since for 3 years he saw that the first lakeach was eating it and didn't protest, when he sells it to the next guy, the bailim has no case to argue that this is mine and I was not nicha to the sale. Take it up, effective more. If the middle guy is telling the original owner, I bought it from you. Yes, I paid off the Sakrikan, but I bought it from you as well. If that's the complaint, afilu rishanami. So why is the bride saying only if I sell it to a third party, only then can the original owner not claim it back? Even I could keep it. Even if he comes after me, I can keep it because I can make the same time. But either like a time, if the middle guy is not claiming that he bought it, he's not saying anything. So we don't know for sure that in fact it was ever fair and square bought from the original seller. Then afilu sheni nami loy. So then even the second guy shouldn't be able to keep it. So what is the case? No one's saying anything. However, if it's the guy himself, the middle guy, the person who actually claims that he purchased it from the original owner, there he has to argue that because he was there. So unless he actually says, I bought it from you, his taina is not a taina and he loses the property. But if he sells it to a third party, that third party has no idea how the person who sold it to him got it. So therefore, he's at a disadvantage. Because if the original owner comes and makes a claim against the buyer, what's he going to say? So since the Lekayach in this case is helpless, or who didn't, if the person who bought it died, and now his Yorshim are dealing with it, they're also helpless because they weren't there at the sale. Therefore, Bezdin Tain is on their behalf. Tian lekech. The idich, but the guy himself, if he claims he bought it, fine, we'll listen to his taina. But if he doesn't claim he bought it, loy, then we take it away. Taner Rabbanim. Haba machmas choy. Someone who comes machmas choy. In other words, a goy took land from a yid because of a choy, or machmas and parish, or if he was being a goslin, where the guy just seizes his property just because. Ein by mishum sekrikun, that does not have the halachas of sekrikun, meaning, even if we're going to soon see what that halacha is. That halacha is that if he had it for 12 months, he has to give only 1/4 to the bailam, but he can keep it. That's the halacha of sekrikun. But by chayv and parish, you don't have that benefit, and no matter what, you have to give it back to the original seller. Van parish atzma, the parish itself, shricha shetisha shnei masar chayv. And in order for the parish to be able to hold on to it, he had to have had it for 12 months. What do you mean? Well, Hamart ain't no mishum sekrikum. Didn't you just say a moment ago that there's no Allah of sekrikum by Amparis, and you always have to return the property to the original owner? You're right. Sekrikum atzma tzricha shetisha yud beischad. So by sekrikum, if it was in the hands of the sekrikum for 12 months, and then you bought it from the sekrikum, then you're allowed to keep it if you pay 1/4 of its value to the original owner. But on parais and machmas choy, there the bailam is never miyayish from it. The bailam is never agreeable to any sale. His life is never in danger, and therefore, no matter how long Dan parais or the malva had it, machmas choy, it's never a good mechira. And if you buy it from them, you're out of luck, and it's going to go back to the original owner. Amar Rabbi Yosef, nothing we learned. Ain't an parais b'bavel. There's no an parais in Bavel. No one ever seizes property. What are you talking about? We see every day it happens. There's no din on parish, meaning you don't say that it automatically goes back. You actually say that the person who bought it from the parish gets to keep it. My timer, even the ikabe doyar, also, since there are courts, and they refer to courts as the beidoyar, as the post office, because when they would petition the court, they would first make a written submission. So since there is recourse in Bavel for someone to get his property back, also Kabel, and he didn't go complain. Kabel means he didn't make the complaint. Ema achul achol, maybe he's moichol, and therefore you get to keep it. Gidol bara iloi Kabel arabataska mibnei baga. It used to be that the way taxes were paid was the king would assess a certain neighborhood, and he would say, from this neighborhood, I need to get X dollars of tax money. Now, you figure out in between you guys how it's going to be paid. So normally they'd split up the square footage, however they would do it. But what happens if one other person cannot pay? So you would get somebody, a third party from out of the region, to pay the taxes on his behalf. And while he was paying the taxes, he would be able to keep the produce of the field. So Gidol Bar Eloi was just such a person. Kibel Arabataska Mibne Baga. What happened was one of the landowners there disappeared. So he couldn't make any deal. So now the rest of the neighborhood would have been forced to pay extra taxes. So what they did is they took the liberty of selling this property temporarily to a third party who would come and pay the taxes for it. And what this Gidol Bar Eloi did is he prepaid the taxes for 3 years. Active Yoav Zuzay the Tlashnin. L'soif Asamar Vasa Kamoi. After the first year, the original owner came and said, no, I'm taking over, get out of here. Omrulay, they told him, Shata Kamai to the Yoav Sva'achla. The first year you took, you paid, and you got the payers. Hashta Anan Yavinon Anan Nachlin. Now I'm going to continue paying the taxes, I get to keep the property. So basically, Gidol Bar Eloi basically is losing out 2 years that he prepaid the taxes. So also look, I made your papa. He came to your papa and says, I want my money. My papa thought that this time of Gidol was just, and therefore I'm going to write a star that he can seize the property of the rest of the valley in his benefit. to pay up for the money that he laid out. No. That's essentially what Sukrikun is. And this is not a case of Sukrikun. You're letting him, since the king is taking this money, you're letting him buy the karka for the king, so to speak. How could you allow that? Ella, rather, he doesn't get his money back. The best way to get rid of money is to put the money on the horn of a deer. It's going to run away. You'll never see your money again. He did, by him paying extra, he took a risk, and it was a bad risk, and therefore it's too bad for him. Okay, we'll stop here. We're almost caught up. We're in Daf Nuches. We're a little bit caught up. So we'll stop here, and we'll be Mamshech B'ez Hashem tomorrow.
Yeah.